The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining VBCC on our monthly webinar series. My name is Kelly Bergman, and I am the Relationship Coordinator for Vrakas Blum. Quickly, before I give the floor over to our presenter, just a few housekeeping items. All attendees are in listen-only mode. Feel free to type in your questions in the question box on your side tab. I don't know what that thing's called, and we'll make sure we get those things answered for you as soon as possible. Also, the webinar is being recorded and we'll post it on our website probably later today. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Nicole Ronchetti, the Director of Enhancements for DSD. Nicole, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Again, my name is Nicole Ronchetti. I'm the Director of Enhancements at DSD. Today we're going to be going over, what's new with some of the different enhancements that we have and what are some of the new enhancements that we have. I'll go over just a little introduction in the beginning as far as DSD at a high level, some of the different things that we do and some of the different things that we offer. And then we'll also go over our document management solution with DSD InstaDocs. And we also have a couple other new enhancements that we're going to be showing today too. Some of those are the master invoice for sales order, upsell for sales order, audit tracking for purchase order and sales order, and also some new history screens for bank rec and cash receipts. So again, just a high level of DSD for those who might not be familiar with our company. DSD is a gold certified Sage 100 master developer. We have been in business for, I think it's over 35 years now. I should know the year that we started, but I've not been with DSD for 35 years. But we have over 500 enhancements for Sage 100. We also do things like custom programming as well. So we've done about over 5,000 implementations in one form or another with various partners that we work with, and we've served over 9,000 businesses with Sage 100 enhancements. Some of those enhancements that we have, these are just a few. Again, we have about over 500 enhancements. If you're kind of interested in some of the different things that we offer, you can always go to the development website for all of our enhancements, and we can send that out after the meeting. But we have a ton of different enhancements for Sage 100. One of our most popular things that we do is the multi-currency and multi-company enhancements. Some of the enhancements that we offer are just small features, adding on, just slight functionality inside of Sage 100, and other enhancements that we have are entire modules. So the range of enhancements that we have is pretty broad. Again, some are very small, some are very large, but all sorts of add-ons and enhancements that we have for Sage 100. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about today is our document management solution. Document management, I like to kind of, put into terms for people, because document management, that term is a broad, a broad thing that can cover a wide variety of solutions that are out there on the market. A lot of people have looked at document management solutions for Sage 100. Some of those particular document management solutions that are out there, they might be third-party products that are external from the system. They could also be very costly and require their own implementation. A lot of the customers that we see, people who are looking at document management, these are people who are, trying to cut down on all those pieces of paper, all that physical storage that they have all over the place, and trying to find that information and find it in a quick and easy manner, right? And again, there's a lot of different cloud storage solutions out there too, but a lot of those lack integration with, the Sage 100 ERP system. So the cool thing about InstaDocs is it's 100% inside of Sage 100. So it's easy access, right? You're not learning a third-party piece of software that's external, that's sending information back and forth. It's 100% inside of Sage 100, so that makes it really easy for people to, access the information, to learn the software. There's really nothing to learn. It's really, once you see it, you'll see kind of how quick and easy it is to get up and running with it and to use it. InstaDocs also provides the ability to do document tagging. So you can tag specific documents with keywords that you can use for searching. And then we also have the InstaDocs master search to search for those different files that are attached to different, customers, vendors, items, sales orders. You can use that master search to search for all of those files. Okay. InstaDocs also integrates very tightly with Paperless Office. So if you're currently using Paperless Office or considering using Paperless Office, you can also set up InstaDocs so that when you're generating your Paperless Office PDFs, whether it be an invoice or a sales order, when that Paperless Office PDF is generated, that can also automatically be stored inside of InstaDocs as well. And it also adds additional security privileges so that, even if someone has access to customer maintenance, maybe you don't want them seeing the particular documents, there's additional security options there. And it also works well with cloud storage solutions. So if, and we mentioned OneDrive here, you can also use it with something like SharePoint or other cloud storage solutions as well. So if you're concerned about document management and you're worried about storing things and having enough server space, again, you can use it with cloud storage solutions. Okay. Another really cool thing that I like to mention as well, because we do integrate with Paperless Office, there's another product from APS called Click to Pay. And with Click to Pay, customers, when they receive their Paperless Office invoice, they'll receive that invoice from Paperless Office and they'll get a button that they can click on to, click and pay it right online, and then Sage 100 will automatically receive the payment back in, so they can enter in their own credit card information. So if you're sending out things like those net 30 invoices and you want an online portal, InstaDocs works alongside that. So some of the things that we'll be showing today as far as enhancing the functionality in Paperless Office, we work together with that APS Click to Pay as well. And some of the other enhancements that are new are the Master Invoice enhancement. So Master Invoice, recently Sage, in one of the newer versions, I think it was version 2018, Sage added the ability to combine multiple sales orders on an invoice, right? But in order to do that with the standard Sage feature, what you have to do is you have to know all of the sales orders that are being shipped out on that particular shipment or on that particular invoice. What a lot of people need to do is they need the ability to create invoices, create shipments, throughout the week or throughout the month, and then send one master invoice, one, combined invoice at the end of the month for all of those shipments that were made. Okay, so that's what the master invoice allows you to do. It allows you to combine those multiple invoices onto one master invoice. Okay, and then once that master invoice is sent, and again, this works with Paperless Office, so you can send those master invoices electronically. And then once the customer receives that, and then there's a payment, we also, with that enhancement, it's modifying cash receipts so that you have the option to enter in the master invoice number as opposed to the individual invoice numbers. Okay. Another enhancement that we've also added that I'll be showing today is our upsell enhancement. So I like to use the kind of example of, do you want fries with that, right? Some people just don't know what upselling is. So, upselling, there's not really a way inside of Sage 100 to, let's say, do associated items that are add-ons, right? So what upsell allows you to do is allows you to say that when, if you have a particular unit and you have some add-ons or some additional items that the customer might be might be interested in when they're purchasing that, you can set up those upsell items. So when you're doing order entry or invoice data entry, the upsell window will appear with those add-on items, and you can select which items you want to add on to the particular order. And that's particularly useful, if you have people who are entering orders, they're taking orders over the phone, they can just enter in the item code right there and it'll pop up and give you those suggested add-ons. And some of the other things that we're also going to be showing today are our audit tracking and our history inquiries. So audit tracking we came out with just over the last year, and it's probably one of the enhancements that I've been the most excited about because it's something that people have asked for a ton of times, especially when it comes to sales order. The audit tracking we do have for sales order and purchase order, but what it does is it tracks additions, changes, and deletions to a particular sales order. And it's for every single field on the header or the lines of a sales order or purchase order. So let's say, someone made a change on a particular sales order and you don't know what the value was of that field before it was changed. The audit tracking keeps track of each field, the original value, the new value, and then who made the change and when. So it's a complete audit of that particular sales order or purchase order. So it's just very useful, if there's questions about why something was entered or who made the change or where did that line go or who added this line. You can see all that information with the audit tracking enhancements. And then we also have two new history inquiries. One is bank rec transaction history inquiry, which is a very cool enhancement if you're doing bank reconciliation inside of Sage 100. One of the things with bank rec in Sage is when you perform your reconciliation process, when you're going through your bank statement and you select items to be cleared from the bank rec module, once you perform that, those records, those transactions are gone. You might have printed reports and saved copies of reports, but bank rec does not keep a history. So what we do with the bank rec transaction history is we actually created all of the history files for bank rec. So when you perform that clear, those records are actually copied over into history. And the nice thing about that is a lot of times we've seen where clients inadvertently, clear their bank rec information, and maybe they cleared a record they didn't mean to, or they didn't mean to clear any. Because we're keeping all of that in the bank rec transaction history, what you can actually do is restore those back to the open bank rec files as well. So if you inadvertently clear records, they're not gone forever, like with standard Sage 100. And the other one, lastly, that we'll be showing today is the cash receipts history. Kind of just one of those strange things, like why did Sage not make a cash receipts history inquiry screen? There's no real way to see a cash receipts history inquiry. There's reports you can run. They have the files there to keep track of the files, but there's no inquiry screens for cash receipts for the history files. So we added a cash receipts history inquiry screen as well. So I'm going to go ahead and move over into the demo. What's a session? And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free throughout the presentation to post those in the chat window if you have any questions, and we'll either get to those while I'm talking, or we'll answer all those at the end. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about InstaDocs. So just at a high level, InstaDocs is going to add a InstaDocs tab to all of your maintenance and data entry screens inside of Sage 100. Now, InstaDocs is module based, okay, and this is actually brand new. I have to get used to what I say because we've just changed what modules we offer it for. We've added a new module. So InstaDocs is available for accounts receivable, accounts payable, purchase order, sales order, inventory, and we've just released it this week for general ledger as well. So if you want to attach documents to general journal entries, recurring journal entries, you can do InstaDocs in the general ledger module also. So my point for kind of mentioning the fact that it's module based is you only purchase it for the modules that you need. So if you feel like InstaDocs will be useful for accounts payable and purchase order, you can get it just for accounts payable and purchase order. You don't have to purchase the entire suite of modules. Okay. So if I look at something like customer maintenance here, and I look at my InstaDocs tab, you'll notice all of the different files and documents that I've attached to this particular customer. Okay. Now, adding files here is just as simple as taking a file from your desktop and dragging and dropping it, and it's going to copy that from my local machine to my InstaDocs directory. Now, again, this is pointed to my C drive. This is just because I'm working locally, but on your system, this would be pointed to either somewhere on your network, you know, a UNC path. It could be on your Sage server. It could be a dedicated file server, or this could also be pointed to, you know, when I mentioned like OneDrive and SharePoint. A lot of times people set up a OneDrive or a SharePoint account and they map to that particular drive location. Okay, so again, when I'm performing that drag and drop, it's copying that file from my local machine onto my InstaDocs directory. Now, if I'm doing things for customers, whether it be on the customer record or on a sales order or on an invoice, that's all going to get stored in my InstaDocs directory with a subdirectory for each customer. Okay, now same thing with vendors. If I'm doing a vendor attachment, there's going to be subdirectories for each vendor. And when you look at your server, if you go and browse to that location in Windows, you're going to see all of those documents for that particular customer or vendor in that particular directory. Now, what InstaDocs does and what Sage is doing when we're performing that drag and drop is we're actually doing a tagging. We're creating log records and we're creating a tag record to denote what that document is actually for. Now, I have all of these documents listed here. Now, some of these could be for sales orders, they could be for invoices, they could be for a whole bunch of different things, or it could just be a general document for the customer. Regardless of where I attach it in Sage 100, if I'm in customer maintenance, I'm going to see all of the files that are associated for that particular customer, regardless if it was for an invoice or a sales order. Okay, so if I look at something like sales order entry, should have an order out here. Okay, and again, we're adding that InstaDocs tab to sales order entry. Now I'm still pointed at that particular path, but I don't see any documents here because there's no files that are associated with that particular sales order. Okay, again, because we're doing this logging and this tracking and this tagging, we're keeping track of which documents are for which transactions or which data entry screens inside of Sage 100. So if I take maybe my PowerPoint here, I can copy that. I'll see that PowerPoint on this particular sales order, but I'm not going to see the rest of the documents that exist in this directory. Okay, if I go back to my customer and look at my customer and look at my InstaDocs tab, you'll see that I see all of the documents, all of the files for that particular customer, regardless of where it was attached. Okay. And again, you'll see that InstaDocs tab, depending on which modules you're in, but you'll see that InstaDocs tab added to all of our, all of the maintenance and data entry screens. So whether I'm in sales order or invoice data entry or shipping data entry, you'll see those documents. Now, and especially for something like sales orders, for example, if I put an attachment here on a sales order and then I create an invoice or I do shipping data entry for that, that document is going to follow along with that invoice, that shipment. And then it'll, also follow along to invoice history. So if I go to my invoice history inquiry after this has been posted, I'll see that document associated with that, throughout the life of that sales order or that invoice. One of the cool things that we do too is, you know, talking about some of those enhancements that we do alongside Paperless Office. And I'm not going to go through the whole printing process, but we do this attach tag documents to email deliveries. And we have this again in sales order entry and invoice data entry. So if you're sending a Paperless Office email already with the PDF from Paperless Office, you can select to also include these particular files along with your Paperless Office email. So Sage is still doing that Paperless Office functionality, but we're adding on our InstaDocs files to that Paperless Office email. So if I just have an example here. Let me go to my InstaDocs folder on my crazy inbox here. Okay. So if I look here, this is kind of an example of what one looks like. This is my Paperless Office email right here. So this was generated out of Sage, and I had an additional file that was included on that invoice, this InstaDocs PDF. Sage generated that, you know, email. Sage generated this particular PDF, right? And we included the InstaDocs attachment along with that. And you can include as many attachments as you like in there. Oh, so I just noticed that there was a question. So one of the questions, and this is something that comes up pretty often with InstaDocs, you know, because we are adding additional tab, a lot of times people using Custom Office or maybe other third-party products already have a tab 6 on their sales order entry or their invoice data entry or one of their screens. Essentially what happens once you install InstaDocs, there might be some additional finagling of the screen might be required. So if you kind of use your imagination and imagine having a 7th tab here. So, you know, just as an example, you might have to move your user ID field, and you'll probably end up with 2 tab 6s, and you'll just need to renumber your custom tab. But yeah, it'll work fine with Custom Office, but depending on how much you've already kind of manipulated your screen, you might have to manipulate it a little bit more too. Okay. But they all merge together, you know, the Custom Office panels as well as the InstaDocs panels. You know, the screen will still, you know, continue to function, but you just might have to shift some stuff around. So, but it's a pretty simple and easy solution. You know, again, I've had a lot of people ask me, you know, how long does training take? How long does it take to get our staff trained on InstaDocs? And I go, just drag it and drop it. It's really a pretty simple and easy solution to use. I think a lot of times with document management, the hardest thing is really kind of deciding what do we want to store, what do we want to be adding in. But as far as actually using it, it's really simple and easy to use. And talking again about one of the things that I mentioned before was the tagging. So if we look at, if we go to this particular customer, I have this little magic wand icon here. So if I click that, so this was something that I just dragged into this particular customer. There's not a tag for that. But I can create user-defined tags too. So let's say that was a price sheet or something. I could say price sheet. I could put I could put any kind of tags I want in there, and kind of use that as being able to flag that document or that file in a certain way. And then, you know, some of these now, something like this, if I look at my tag, this was actually tagged with the sales order number, and we did that automatically. The programming did. So when I dragged that PowerPoint presentation into that sales order, again, InstaDocs is keeping track of what goes where. So InstaDocs knows, and it creates this tag automatically for sales order number 199. Okay. Looks like there's another question. AP invoice attached. So for the AP invoice, yeah, and that's a huge thing that people are using InstaDocs for is AP. So if we're talking about AP invoice data entry, you're probably receiving PDFs or files from your vendors as far as the invoice. When I go into AP invoice data entry, I have that InstaDocs tab there, and I can add a PDF, of that invoice that I received from the vendor into AP invoice data entry. Now, with things like sales order, purchase order, where you actually have Paperless Office printing, and you're generating AP, and Sage 100 is generating a PDF, or AR invoices, all of those places where we have Paperless Office PDFs, those automatically get copied in. AP, you don't have an AP invoice printing. You would just be receiving the PDF, probably via email, and you would be dragging and dropping that into the screen, but there's no Paperless Office printing for AP invoices, so it wouldn't attach here automatically. You'd have to drag and drop it in. Okay. But again, it's a pretty simple and easy to use solution. And one of the things that we're actually working on now, which I'm pretty excited about, we're adding a new feature. I'm going to call it the one email feature. So one of the biggest complaints with Paperless Office and Sage 100 is if you are updating invoices from the sales order module, and the customer has 5 different invoices, they get 5 different emails with 5 PDFs through Paperless Office. So with InstaDocs, one of the things that we're working on now is doing a one email option for customers. So when the customers receive that Paperless Office email, they're just getting one, not getting 5 or 10 or 20. Okay. Show the vendor maintenance screen of invoices you can turn down on the invoice. So on the vendor maintenance screen, so if I've already attached that invoice, or let's say that, the PDF, comes in later, whenever I want to attach that, if I go to my invoices tab in vendor maintenance, I can drill in and I'm going to see AP invoice history inquiry, and then I can do attachments there. And again, that attachment could have been added either when the invoice was being entered, or you can even add it after the fact. So even if it's been posted and you want to add it here through invoice history inquiry, you can add it after the fact too. We've had a lot of people who, they start using InstaDocs, part of the way through the year. They want to go back through some of their things that have already been posted and, add in the invoices after the fact. And I always kind of say, like, hire a temp and give them the PDFs and have them sit there and drag and drop that all summer. If you want to go back through 6 months of stuff, you can do that as well. So yeah, you can drill into the invoice, add it there, or even just see it there. Okay. All right. So again, we're adding a lot of features to InstaDocs and continually changing that. It is something that we've had around now for about 5 years, but we always kind of like to reintroduce it because we're always adding in new features. So one of the other new features that we've added, and this is the InstaDocs search screen. So you can search for different files based on, what source it came from. You could search based on tag values or file names. And I'm just showing my entire search results. Now this happens, this is also something new that we added, because again, if you remember that when you're performing that drag and drop, it's doing a copy and it's copying that file from my local machine to my InstaDocs directory. Now, and I kind of always just use the example of, like, maybe you have a rogue IT guy who's, going out on the server and deleting files or something. So if those files get removed after, that tag has been created, those will show up in my search results, but those will be red. So those are invalid links. Okay, so those now appear in red. And if you look down here, I can see the, the source, the document type, the tag, the file, the amount. And then we also have this nice little remove tags, and this will remove those orphaned tags. So anything that's invalid won't show up. Okay. And one of the other really nice things about InstaDocs as well, something new that we had just added, when you go through your initial InstaDocs setups, you set a particular path, and that's your default path. And again, whether we're talking about AP or AR, this is my default path, and then it's going to add a subdirectory based on the customer number or the vendor number. One of the really cool things that we just added over the last year is you can come in here and change this path, and what it'll actually do is it'll go out and all of those tag records, it will update all of those tag records with the new path, and then it will actually move all the files to the new path as well. So that's especially important. Let's say if you're upgrading Sage 100, you're moving servers, any of the Sage 100 consultants or anyone who's done their own moving of paperless office files and know how long and intensive that can be to move and relink paperless office files during an upgrade. At least with our InstaDocs files, we've made that a bit easier. It's just changing this path in here, and then it's going to say, do you want to move everything? And you say, yep, and then it moves it all, updates the links, and takes care of it all in one shot. Okay. And again, the other very new thing that we just added is InstaDocs for General Ledger. So that's not the screen I wanted. So I can go into something like General Journal Entry, and I have the ability to have that InstaDocs tab in there. And then I can also add InstaDocs documents from, everything with InstaDocs for GL is going to be associated based on a source journal. That's how we store subdirectories for InstaDocs for General Journal. You can add additional documents to General Journal entries. We also added it to Recurring Journal, Transaction Journal, and I want to say allocations. So allocation selection, allocation journal, we added InstaDocs as well. So we're pretty excited that we now have InstaDocs for General Ledger. Again, InstaDocs is General Ledger, AP, AR, sales order, purchase order, and inventory management. The only two requirements for InstaDocs, if you do need it for sales order, or if you're interested in having it for sales order, you would also need it for accounts receivable, because when your sales invoices are posted, they go to the customer. And same thing with purchase order and AP. So if you need purchase order, you have to get AP and PO, or some people just need it for AP, and they just get it for AP. But again, it's all module based. So depending on which modules you're interested in, you can just get it just for those modules. And it is a very, again, I think I mentioned this before, it's a very cost-effective solution. Most document management solutions out there that are integrated with Sage 100 can cost tens of thousands of dollars. InstaDocs is $1,000 per module. So, especially if you only need it for just a couple modules, it's, the initial purchase is $2,000. So it's a very cost-effective solution. There's really not a lot of add-ons out there that I think are that cost-effective. And it's one of the enhancements that we have that is really something that almost anyone can use. So whether you're, a business that's heavy into AP transactions, or, a business that's heavy into accounts receivable and sales order, it's kind of something for everyone. There really is no decent way inside of Sage 100 to do attachments or to do files. You can do things like memo codes, but anyone who's worked with the memo codes knows that those things can become very annoying and very convoluted, and it takes time to create a separate memo code and enter in all that information for each file. InstaDocs just makes it easy because you can just drag and drop it in there, and then you have the attachment in there for everyone to see. Okay. And so some of the other enhancements that we've added that I was going to talk about today. So something like the master invoice. Master invoice, again, is something that a lot of people asked us for. Master invoice gives you the ability to create different combined invoices, and it combines invoices that have already been posted onto one master invoice. Okay, so if you look here, this has its own numbering sequence in the sales order options for master invoice number. And if you look down here, you can see that this master invoice consists of these two particular invoices that I've linked to it. Creating a new master invoice or adding invoices to an existing master invoice, I can just go here. This will show me all of the different invoices that this particular customer has open. Let's say that I wanted to add a few more invoices. I didn't click all the boxes I meant to. Let's say all of these should be included on this master invoice. It's going to show me the total down here, and I can just hit accept. And that's all I have to do. There's no additional posting. You already posted the invoice when the shipment went out. You posted your invoice, your inventory, your AR got updated. When you're doing the master invoice selection, you're creating that master invoice number, and then you're linking existing invoices to it. We are writing that master invoice number back to all of the invoices that are out there. So we're keeping track of all that information so we know which invoices are linked to a particular master invoice. But it just gives you like a nice and easy way to create a combined invoice. So then I can go into something like my master invoice printing. And this is just a crystal form, just like any other form in there. So if you want to customize this invoice, you can. And once I print this, this is actually giving me a combined invoice here for all the different orders that I had on this. So I can see every single line from every single invoice, and it's combining my totals, my freight, everything else is combined onto one master invoice. Now, when I go into something like cash receipts, right, because when the customer gets that invoice, that's the number that they're going to be paying, is that master invoice number. So, let's go here. Just make a new one. Looks like I had a stuck update somewhere. So I'm gonna hit accept. So you'll notice in here I have a master invoice number. So I can come to a particular customer and then put in my check number, put in my amount, and then I can select a master invoice number, and then I hit the auto button, and well, I only have $500, but it's going to populate all the invoice numbers based on that master invoice number that I selected. Okay, so your customer's just seeing the one invoice, but throughout the week or throughout the month, you're shipping out orders, you're sending all this stuff, and a lot of times people are using this for a situation like a monthly bill, right? Sending out, I only bill this customer once a month, but we ship to them throughout the month. So that's really what that's used for, a good example. Some of the other things that we have, the sales order upsell. Let's see if I remember which item is my upsell item. If I go to my lines, and I think I did the first one. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know where I put it. Maybe that's not my upsell item. Maybe I don't have one set up as upsell. So let's quickly set up an upsell item. So I'm going to go into my item maintenance screen, and I'm going to go into upsell items. And here's where I could put in those associated items. So I could put in a few items here. I'll do another one. So this is just from item maintenance. I'm just associating those items with that particular item. I'm going to accept that. Let's just do a new order. order. And let's pick that first item. And then my upsell window is going to appear based on those settings. So again, this is for when someone's on the phone, they say, oh, if you purchased this letter, 2-drawer letter file, maybe you'd also be interested in this or this. And you can add those onto the order, put in the quantities, update the pricing, and it's going to automatically add those items to the order. So again, it just gives those data entry people an easy way to have associated items that they can upsell to their customer while they're entering a sales order or an invoice. And we also, just to kind of run through some of the other ones real quick, some of the other things that I mentioned before, the audit tracking, I'll just show it in sales order, but it's going to work the same way in purchase order. I'm going to hit preview here. As far as the audit tracking is concerned, nothing is different from the user standpoint. They're just performing order entry just like they normally would. But when I actually run my audit report, I could run this for a particular date range or based on different criteria. It's going to actually go through and tell you, here's the order number. Okay, this payment type was changed to CC. This payment type category was changed from D to P. This check number was added. And then it actually shows you on the lines too. So on this particular sales order, the first line number, here was the item code. I have a rate field. Okay, so I have user-defined fields on the lines of rate. I also have a user-defined field of region. Okay, so third-party fields, user-defined fields, anything that's on the sales order header, purchase order header, or lines, it's going to track that information and tell you the old value, the new value, and who changed it and when. Okay? And some people don't like how this report's necessarily formatted, but again, it's a crystal report, so if you want to, simplify it or anything else, you can. But again, it's keeping track of the entire audit trail of a particular sales order or purchase order. And some of the other ones that I mentioned as well as our history inquiries. So if I look at bank rec, we have the bank rec transaction history. And let's see if I have any history in here. Oh, nope. I might not have anything. Let's see if I run a report. Bank rec transaction history report. I don't have any bank rec transaction history to show you, but if anyone is interested in the bank rec transaction history, I can most certainly send out information on that afterwards. And then we also have the cash receipts history, which is something that's, again, they're already keeping track of things like, cash receipts history in the files. They just do not provide a window inside of Sage 100 to select a particular bank code. You can select a deposit number, and you can see that information. You can see which customers were on that, which invoices. You can see all of that information in a nice and easy screen without having to run reports or anything else. So that's about it. I'm not sure if anyone else has any other questions. It's unfortunate I couldn't show you the bank rec transaction history, but I recently got a new computer too, so who knows, I might not have reinstalled something. So if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. Does anybody from VB have anything that they want to talk about or add?
No, I think you did a great job. I don't think we need to. Always a pleasure watching you navigate through that, by the way.
Yeah, and I ran through quite a bit of different enhancements in a fairly short period of time. But if you, have any other ones that you want to dig into a little bit more, one of the questions you said, do you recommend a remote server for audit track? I'm not sure what you mean by that for the audit track in a remote server. Space used, it's really kind of minimal. the amount of space, we're just storing that in our own Providex file that we've created. And one of the things that I didn't show, because I don't think I have all of my permissions set up, but it does prompt you, if you've ever used any of the standard audit tracking, there's already audit tracking features inside of Sage 100 as far as like customer audits, item audits. We're doing the exact same thing. We're just doing it for sales orders and purchase orders. After that report is run, it will prompt and say, do you want to purge? So you can do a purging of that. It's not going to just stay out there forever. But no, we don't currently have a way to customize the data location just for the audit file. But it's all just inside of the standard Sage 100 files. But it really doesn't take up that much space. Okay.
Well, on behalf of VBCC, thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And as always, if anybody does have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me or your favorite VBCC consultant. We can hook you back up with Nicole or someone on her team just to get you more info if you need it. And again, thank you all for attending the VBCC monthly webinar series, and maybe we'll see you next month on July 17th. That one's at 11 o'clock. We're a little early there for our presentation on the new work order module production management. And with that, I hope you all have a great day.